was El Chapo? How did he live his life? And where is he now? Let's find out in today's episode of the History Chronicles. The man who would become El Chapo was born on the 4th of April 1957 to Emilio and Maria Guzman as Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera. He had two older sisters, Armida and Bernarda, along with four older brothers, Miguel Angel, Aureliano, Arturo, and Emilio. His father was a cattle farmer in the town of La Tuna. Yet by the time Joaquin was born, his father's life as a cattle farmer was practically over, as he was forced to find new ways to provide for his family, and he began growing opium poppies. Joaquin only received an education until the age of 11, as the nearest school was more than 50 miles away, and as a result, travelling teachers would provide the bulk of his education. By tradition, once a son was old enough to work, he was expected to help provide for the family. Emilio and his sons would hike to the poppy fields high in the Sierra Madre, where they performed hard manual work. The buds were scraped from the plant to provide the gum used in the production of heroin. Following the harvesting process, Emilio would negotiate and sell the opium gum to a middleman until it eventually reached the coastline cities of Culiacan, Guayaquil, and Los Mochis, with the finished product eventually being smuggled into the United States. Joaquin was stocky, but small, only growing to 5'6", resulting in him gaining the nickname Chapo, which translates as Shorty. El Chapo had a rough childhood, as he and his siblings were often victims of his father's violent outbursts, along with his use of alcohol. El Chapo was kicked out of the house by the age of 12 after he stopped his father from beating one of his siblings. He moved in with his grandfather, and by the age of 15, he had begun growing marijuana with four of his cousins. The rise of El Chapo was steady, and the region of Sinaloa was poverty-stricken, with little assistance from the local or federal authorities, leading the drugs cartels to step in to fill the power vacuum. He began his career in the 1970s with the help of his uncle, Pedro Aviles Perez, known as El León de la Sierra, or the Lion of the Mountain. Perez was one of the first Mexican narcotic criminals, trafficking heroin and marijuana between Sinaloa and the United States. He also used private aircrafts to fly cocaine from Colombia into the United States. El Chapo moved to Culiacan at the age of 20 in order to work for his uncle's organization. On the 17th of July 1971, the then US President Richard Nixon declared a war against drugs to quell the effects of drug addiction for US troops fighting in Vietnam. By 1973, Nixon had created the Drug Enforcement Agency, or DEA, in an effort to curtail drug trafficking into the United States. By 1975, the DEA in Mexico launched Operation Condor, hoping to eradicate the poppy fields, followed by Operation Trizo in 1976, which allowed for Mexican nationals to fly US State Department planes and helicopters, leading to the destruction of an additional 22,000 acres. The economic fallout was major, resulting in social unrest in the Sinaloa region, resulting in Mexico cancelling the operation. The United States declared success, as heroin usage in the United States fell to 5%. While the Mexican authorities lessened their interest in destroying the agricultural side of the business, they continued to crack down on drug lords and their operations. As on the 15th of September 1978, the Mexican drug lord Pedro Perez was killed in a shootout with Mexican federal police, resulting in his operations being taken over by Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. He would later become known as El Padrino, or the Godfather, and would shape the organizational structure most cartels follow to this day. El Chapo took over the logistical side of the Guadalajara cartel, overseeing the shipment of cocaine for Hector Luis Palma Salazar. Salazar, known as El Guero or Paleface, had risen through the cartel's structure to become Gallardo's right-hand man. El Chapo married in 1977 to Alejandrina Maria Salazar Hernandez, and the couple would have 3 children, Ivan, Jesus, and Cesar. Ivan and Jesus would later follow in their father's footsteps. El Chapo hardly socialized at this stage of his life, instead opting to push his superiors to give him more responsibility. He would get his chance, as the DEA disrupted the supply of cocaine coming to the United States from Pablo Escobar's Colombia drug cartel in Medellin with Operation Swordfish. This effort caused the Miami route for drug smuggling to become untenable, forcing Escobar's cartel to use the Mexican drug cartels as middlemen to transport their drugs through the Mexican border. In the early 1980s, El Chapo married his second wife, Estela Pena, having 4 children with her, Edgar, Joaquin, Ovidio, and Griselda Guadalupe. He also received another major promotion, handling the logistical aspects of moving cocaine across Mexico and into the United States. Meanwhile, the inauguration of President Ronald Reagan in 1981 ushered in a new effort to stop drug trafficking, with a continued effort to prevent the cocaine import from Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel. By the following year, cocaine had surpassed coffee as the #1 export of Colombia. When 37-year-old DEA agent Enrique Camarena was killed on the 7th of February 1985 while undercover in the Guadalajara cartel, it led the DEA to launch the largest homicide investigation to date, called Operation Leyenda. The Reagan administration demanded action from the Mexican government, but the cartels were protected politically. The death of DEA agent Camarena began the decline of the Guadalajara cartel, as Gallardo was arrested on the 9th of April 1989 and charged with racketeering, drug smuggling, and the kidnapping and murder of DEA agent Camarena. Rumors circulated that Gallardo's arrest was orchestrated by El Chapo, though this is not confirmed. Gallardo's arrest exposed the corruption of public officials, leading to the arrest of high-ranking police commanders, while hundreds fled the police force to work directly for the cartel. Gallardo's arrest also caused a power vacuum, allowing El Chapo to begin bringing in people he could trust, including his brothers, cousins, and nephews. He slowly acquired properties throughout Mexico with false names, allowing him to stash drugs, banknotes, and weapons. El Chapo's cartel would be decentralized, with each town consisting of a cell. The only job of these cells was to look after the drugs, move the drugs, or look after the payment until they could be collected. El Chapo preferred to hire ex-military, especially those with experience in bombs and rocket launchers, who would become known as sicarios, who would kill his enemies when instructed. His operations were barely on the radar of the United States authorities. He first used false floors in trunks to hide drugs, but because of court cases which outlined this tactic, he decided in 1989 to create a system of tunnels across the border to allow him to smuggle drugs into the United States. One example was a warehouse built less than 100 feet from the border in the town of Douglas, Arizona, across from the town of Agua Prieta in Mexico. In Agua Prieta, El Chapo's lawyer, Francisco Camarena, built a luxury ranch house with a tunnel connecting the two buildings. Following a tip-off, Arizona police raided the warehouse to discover a pool table with hydraulic lifts, revealing the entrance to the tunnel. US authorities believe the tunnel was only in use for 6 months and cost nearly $1.5 million to construct. Despite its short-lived usage, El Chapo considered the tunnel a success and expanded his underground network through the use of press gangs and dug 181 passageways between Mexico and the United States. El Chapo also used a grocery wholesale business which allowed him to pack cans of jalapeno peppers with a half kilo of cocaine. The cans would then be topped off with a layer of sand, which would make the cans the correct weight. Trucks carried a total of 3,000 cans which were mixed with genuine cans. It's estimated $500 million worth of cocaine reached Los Angeles each year. Despite his ingenuity, El Chapo would be arrested in 1991. But due to the corrupt nature of Mexican law enforcement, he walked free after handing the Mexico City Chief of Police a suitcase filled with $50,000. A shift would come in the 1990s as the Colombian cocaine cartels had been suppressed, resulting in the Mexican cartels taking over both the production and distribution of cocaine. With Gallardo in prison, his empire fractured. The Tijuana cartel, run by Arellano Felix, began to fight the Sinaloa cartel, run by Hector Salazar and El Chapo. In January of 1992, Felix's San Diego-based Logan Heights gang killed 6 of El Chapo's men. The Sinaloa cartel struck back on the 3rd of September by killing 9 members, including family members of Gallardo. El Chapo was nearly killed in November of 1992 when Felix and 4 of his sicarios ambushed him in the streets of Guadalajara. Another attempt was made on the 23rd of May 1993 at Guadalajara Airport, in which Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo's white Mercury car was mistaken to be El Chapo's vehicle, as he commonly used one, resulting in the death of the Cardinal, along with his chauffeur and 5 other individuals. El Chapo went into hiding to prevent any further attempts on his life, yet on the 4th of June 1993 he was betrayed and arrested at a hotel in Tapachula, Guatemala. He was extradited to Mexico, where he faced 20 years of prison at Federal Social Readaptation Center, or Altiplano, for possession of firearms, drug trafficking, and the murder of Cardinal Ocampo, though this charge would be dropped. El Chapo was transferred to Puente Grande prison in Jalisco on the 22nd of November 1995. He enjoyed special meals, wine, and often had the dining hall converted into a movie theatre where he enjoyed popcorn and candy. El Chapo even invited his entire family to spend Christmas with him. While in jail, Hector Salazar was involved in a plane crash in June of 1995, and although he survived, he was taken into custody by federal police at the scene and extradited to the United States. Despite El Chapo also being in prison, he now held sole possession of the Sinaloa cartel. In 2000, El Chapo and one of the Sinaloa attorneys, Humberto Loya Castro, faced extradition to the United States over money laundering and cocaine trafficking into California. Due to changes in the law, extradition became simple, meaning El Chapo could be sent to the United States to go to trial. In the evening of the 19th of January 2001, El Chapo was busted from his cell thanks to prison guard Francisco Rivera, who bundled him into a prison laundry cart and pushed him outside of the prison where a car was waiting for him, and they escaped into the night to the safety of Badiraguato in the Sierra Madre. The Mexican government, which had gone through a major shift politically, immediately cracked down and began searching for El Chapo with a $7 million bounty. The newly elected President Fox and his National Action Plan was failing to control the Sinaloa cartel. El Chapo was nearly captured in March of 2001 when Mexican police stopped the wrong car, arresting his brother, Arturo. In 2004, the Mexican Air Force used helicopters to raid a party El Chapo was hosting at one of his hideouts in the Sierra Madre. El Chapo was lucky once again and was able to escape the party. His brother Arturo was not so lucky, as Sinaloa's enemies assassinated him in prison on the 31st of December 2004. His brother's death marked a period of setbacks, but he was able to regroup and expand due to the collapse of the Colima gang. Yet trouble soon arose again. The alliance between the Beltran-Leyva brothers and El Chapo broke down when a tip-off from El Chapo led to the arrest of Alfredo Beltran-Leyva. This outraged Arturo Leyva, the other brother, leading him to organize a hit on El Chapo's son, Edgar, on the 8th of May 2008. This began a brutal conflict between the two cartels, lasting for over 2 years. The political atmosphere of Mexico had been volatile. The National Action Plan failed to control the cartels along with their successors, the Calderón administration, who left office in 2012. They may have had some success in curtailing the business aspect of the cartels, but violence had risen significantly due to their destabilization. The election of 2012 saw the return to power of the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, or PRI, with Enrique Netet becoming president. He looked to steer Mexican domestic policy away from the aggressive raids sanctioned by the previous administrations, but he would not go easy on crime. Netet's task force was successful, tracking El Chapo down to a 20-story seafront condominium on Avenida del Mar. He would be arrested and immediately flown back to Mexico City and placed in Altiplano prison. The arrest made international headlines, and El Chapo was to spend the rest of his life in prison. Despite their best efforts to contain El Chapo, he would escape on the 11th of July 2015 through his infamous tunnel, which was dug underneath his shower. The tunnel was over a mile long and supposedly the work of El Chapo's newest wife, Emma Coronel. Following further investigation, the authorities discovered it was a mile long and used a motorcycle adapted to run on a rail system for quick removal of the dirt, allowing them to dig the tunnel, while also providing El Chapo with a means of fast escape once the tunnel was finished. Great effort was taken to recapture El Chapo, with one attempt occurring on the 6th of October, which led to a minor injury for the drug lord. They finally captured him for the 4th time on the 8th of January 2016, when Operation Black Swan was launched, which killed 5 of El Chapo's bodyguards. Having escaped from the original attempt, El Chapo and his lieutenant Gastelum were stopped by federal police in the town of Juan Jose Rios. Fearing an attempt to free him, the federal police hunkered down at a local motel until federal Marines were able to take him into custody. The capture of El Chapo allowed for the United States to lodge an appeal to extradite the drug lord to the United States to stand trial for conspiracy to import and distribute cocaine and marijuana, money laundering, arms possession, and murder. In the end, the United States decided to drop the murder charges as they occurred in Mexico and could result in a drawn-out trial. He would be officially extradited on the 19th of January 2017. His trial began on the 5th of November 2018 in the Eastern District of New York City in Brooklyn. Following a mountain of evidence against the drug lord and 6 days of deliberation, the jury came back on the 12th of February 2019, finding him guilty on all 10 counts filed against him. El Chapo was sentenced to a prison for life plus a consecutive 30 years, and ordered to pay $12.6 billion in forfeiture. 2 days later, El Chapo was taken by helicopter to the U.S. Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility in Florence, Colorado, better known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, which was built to house those deemed too dangerous to be held in other correctional facilities. He now lives in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day under 24-hour surveillance with no human contact, and is only allowed one 15-minute non-legal call a month. Barring any extreme circumstances, this will be El Chapo's home for the rest of his life. You have been watching the History Chronicles. We'd love to know what you think of El Chapo. Please let us know below, and if you enjoyed our video, please give us a like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Also, if you'd like to support our work going forward, please visit our Patreon page, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of the History Chronicles.